everybody. My name's Felicia Rose, and this is the Scars and Stillness podcast. Thanks for coming and hanging out. This would be episode 2 of season 2. And as I mentioned last week, this season's different. So I'm not always going to come on and have topics that I want to talk about. Sometimes it'll just be kind of check ins with life and, how we're doing and where we're at and stuff like that. Today, I do want to talk about, I brought it up before in other episodes, but I wanted to talk about like when I've made comments about, um, like feeding, like what I put in to myself. And that's not just like obviously physical food, but like spiritually and all that kind of stuff. Obviously it's important what we feed ourselves. And so I remember when I had first decided to put God 100% first, um, I immediately had convictions about like my music. Music was the big one for me. And honestly, it was probably one of the hardest ones to kind of let go of because I love music. I'm a huge fan of music. Um, And even if it's, like, music that doesn't have cussing or anything like that, it doesn't really matter, like, if I'm listening to music that's depressing or, it's breakup music or it's literally meant to bring you down or the words are really heavy and can kind of trigger trauma, obviously, I'm not feeding myself in a positive way, um, and we have to be really careful with what we listen to and what we watch and who we're around, because we are our friend group and we are what we listen to and what we watch and things like that. And so music for me was actually a pretty hard transition because, like I've mentioned in another episode, like I love rock. Like that's one of my absolute favorites. Um, and I had to get rid of like almost 90% of my rock, which is pretty sad, but there are still some bands that I am able to listen to. And there's some Christian rock bands, which is pretty cool that I'm able to still have some rock on my playlist and stuff. But, at first it was a really hard transition. Like, just trying to have that commitment. But now that I've been doing it for so long, like it's been several months now that like we literally listen to our Christian playlist. And I mean we have like a huge playlist on Spotify, but I also listen to like my own like playlists on Pandora and stuff and obviously it works out really well for us, but at first the transition was pretty rough. Like it was hard to kind of like, oh, okay, this is like what we're doing. But now it's that's what we do. So it's kind of like second nature a little bit. Um, TV shows were basically the same. So, I mean, I've always been kind of old school, you know. Um, and we already like are really good about what we watch and we monitor things like we don't really care for things that have like unnecessary drama and just all the, you know, things that we shouldn't even be wanting to watch. So we don't really watch that kind of stuff anyway, but we were able to make a deeper commitment with what we watch and we were able to get like great American Pure Flicks, which is amazing and it has like shows and westerns and like legit good pure stuff to watch that's like uplifting and encouraging and life lessons and things like that. And it's working really well for me and the fam. So whatever. I'm like I really like mysteries a lot and so they have like a pretty cool mystery section on there which I'm pretty happy about. But yeah, so movies also wasn't really something that was a huge transition for us. We obviously still watch like movies with the kids, like, we have a bunch of, like, Disney movies and stuff with for the kids, like the Disney princesses and Lion King and stuff like that, and so those are movies that we still watch. Me and the fam literally went and just seen, Zootopia 2 in theaters, which was really fun. We haven't gotten to go to the movie theaters in a while, so it was really cool to be able to all kinda just relax and sit down and go see a movie, make time. Time is, like, the most important thing for me too, is, like, making sure I have that time, like, good quality time with my kids and my partner. Because, with the day-to-day, sometimes that kind of gets, like, lost in the shuffle. But lately, I so I've also talked about, like, I'm on a calorie deficit diet, um, and so I have specific, macros that I track. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I have targeted numbers that I'm supposed to hit every single day, and, just recently, when I was at work, I had, like, left my lunch or something, and so I had to order, like, DoorDash. I had to have DoorDash come and bring me a lunch because I was, like, starving. And then I had, like, looked at, like, the ingredients on one of the things that I got, and I was like, "Whoa." I didn't know what, like, 95% of it was. Like, it was literally, like, all mumble jumble chemical crap. And so I had, like, put in the names of, like, each thing, and I was like, "What the heck does that mean?" And it was pretty scary, and then I obviously kind of went in the rabbit hole of research and things like that, and obviously, you learn that ultimately eating whole foods is honestly your best bet. Just, like, ensuring that the food is whole and less amount of ingredient lists, the better. Obviously, ingredients that you can read, you know? So I was able to do research and, prayed about it and stuff like that, and then I'd realized, like, it is very, very possible for me to be in calorie deficit, but then also transitioning into more like a whole foods life. Um, 'Cause there is obviously things with my calorie deficit that I'm not gonna give up, like, my protein shakes from Premier are amazing, I love them. They have, like, a hefty amount of, ingredients and stuff in it that would be considered more processed, obviously, so it's not like a good whole, a whole food, but things like that with, like, my protein shakes, some of my protein bars are the same way, like, I was able to find alternatives that were more whole foods based, but I still have some that are, like, my favorites, like, Built Bars are, like, my one of my favorite protein bars ever because it literally tastes like a goodie. Like, when you eat it, it literally tastes like you're having a candy bar, so I'm like, "I'm not giving that up." So, but that's the thing too is that, like, just having a healthy balance of things, you know what I mean? Like, I know that I don't have to give up certain things in my diet that promote protein and that they're easier for me to hit my numbers, um especially when I'm ensuring that a lot of the foods I am eating now are clean, like, it's cleaner food. And I also had just recently decided that I've always wanted to homestead. That's always been something I've always been interested in and that I've always wanted to do. I've talked about it, like, literally my whole life. I remember being a little tiny girl, and I would tell my mom, like, I wanted to grow up and have property and have all the animals and have my farm and, like, live off the land, and that's always been something that I've been passionate about, so I kinda wanna move forward in that direction a little bit. Um, for starters, I want to try to make as much homemade stuff as possible, so I've been getting, like, new recipes, homemade recipes. I wanna try to make, like, all my own homemade breads, pastas, tortillas, crackers, pita bread, just, like, all the works, bagels, um, and so you know what I mean? Like, I think that that would be really cool to just kind of have my own homemade stuff, and then, yeah, like, lately, I've been making my own homemade creamer, which has been really great, and, yeah, um during, like, the holidays, I recently got braces. I got Invisalign braces, and so, I it's not really super great for me to have, like, hot coffee anymore, and so I've been drinking a lot of cold coffee that I obviously make myself, but, like, a lot of the creamers don't really, for me, taste that great anymore, so it was cool to kinda find a recipe for just, like, a super simple, healthy homemade creamer. So that's kind of what I've been doing. I've been kind of, like, slowly maneuvering into, like, having my calorie deficit, but also having more of, like, a whole foods life, which has been really cool. My family's super into it. The boys just the other day, tried to do, saltine crackers because we were, like, really craving some crackers, and we used to take, like, a saltine cracker, and we'd put, like, jalapeno slice on it with some sharp cheddar shredded cheese and melt it in the microwave for a few, and it's amazing, you know what I mean? It's so good. And so we were able to kind of recreate that because the boys sat and, like, literally made their take of, saltine crackers, and they were delicious, like, they were, like, so just they were really good. And we'd realized that, like, obviously the dough was still a little bit too thick because it has to be, like, paper thin for saltine crackers. And so it kind of turned out like, kinda like, pita bread, like, bites. I used to buy them all the time, where it literally is, like, little pita bread bites, and you can have them with hummus or whatever. It was really good, it was amazing. We did not have a rolling pin when they tried to do that, so it was kind of an adventure for them. I think they used a water bottle that we had on hand, and so I was like, "Well, I gotta buy a rolling pin," and so I successfully bought a rolling pin, so now I'm sure when we make them again, it's not gonna be such a, like, whatever. But that's kinda where I'm at, like, and then they talk about a lot the same thing, like, it's really good and important to just be mindful of what we eat and what we feed ourselves, and obviously, that means all different kinds of feeding, like, I have already mentioned, like, spiritual and social and all that kinda stuff counts as, like, what we're putting into our bodies. And so, yeah, it's been kind of a cool journey to just see us and see that, like, the growth there. And I'm excited to start making stuff homemade. And my kids really like it, and that means a lot to me too, because then I can teach them and we can have time together, making food and eventually like we'll have our chickens and we'll be able to collect our eggs and things like that. Um, but I was able to find alternatives for a lot of the food, so I can still buy the majority of what I want in a grocery store. I just I'm just gonna choose to get, like, more whole food alternatives. So I'm kind of excited for the journey. I know that some of it's gonna be a little bit more expensive, but to kind of have the peace of mind of knowing what I'm putting in my body makes me feel a lot better, and also, again, still being allowed to have, like, my certain things that I feel like are just so essential for my diet, and being able to hit protein really well, especially now that I have Invisaligns, now that I have braces, because I can only have my braces off 4 times a day for 30-minute periods, and so I'm having to, like, get my targeted numbers in each mealtime. So, like, I'm needing to get like, a high amount of protein, high amount of carbs, high amount of everything in each mealtime. So, like, being able to be drinking a protein shake while eating some chicken and having some rice and things like that, that takes the stress off because I can get double protein in a healthy way, and yeah, so it's been kind of an experience that I've been trying to kinda go through, but yeah, so that's kind of what I was meaning when I was talking about, like, being mindful of what I'm feeding my body, like, what I'm putting into my body. Um, and obviously, I feel like just kind of who you hang out with kind of shifts and changes anyway as we grow, and you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's not uncommon to kind of change who you hang out with over time because they no longer serve you and serve your life, and so, yeah, as for, like, people who we hang out with, we haven't had to really change much because you know what I mean? Like, we already weren't hanging out with people that weren't serving us in any way, but yeah, so that's kind of been the journey for now. I really want to, like, make time to kind of take a knack at making my first batch of bread sandwich bread for everybody, and I'll film it too, so that way, if you guys are following all my other socials, you can kinda see the process and see what that looks like, but yeah, I don't really have a lot more to talk about. I just wanted to jump on and kinda talk a little bit about that today. Some people have asked me about, like, what I mean by that, and that's what I mean. That's what I mean about being mindful about what we feed and put into our bodies. Yeah, it's absolutely not just about food, but it's about all the things, and so, obviously, music and movies and all that kinda stuff came first, and then 'cause I meal prep. Like, I already cook a lot for my family, and, I'm already like, I'm into the healthy lifestyle. And I feel better when I eat good food. So it's like, that's not really anything new for me. It's just being more mindful of the ingredient list in the food that I buy. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. So that's kinda my new goal, is just kind of taking more time to be more aware of the ingredients of things, or, finding, like, eggs that I feel like are more appropriate for my lifestyle, and, things like that. But, yeah. So the food I'm pretty excited about because I love healthy food and I love being able to make healthy food for my family. So, that's pretty cool. But I thank you guys for hanging out with me, and um I plan to be on next Tuesday. I'm not really sure what I'm gonna talk about yet, but obviously feel free to, like, you can comment on my post, you can send me messages if you guys have any questions or anything, and obviously, if you're happy here, please like and subscribe. Feel free to follow me on all my other socials. As mentioned in my last, episode, a lot of this stuff is getting updated because we're in a new season now, so I wanna, like, revamp my stuff, just to be a little bit brighter, and easier to read and things like that. That's why, like, the sign is missing. I'm revamping my signs. I'm revamping all the things. So, um, yeah, that's part of it.